we're going to present someone who knows a thing or two about communicating in complex times. So please welcome Glenn Van Zutphen. With a journalism career that includes CNN International and CNBC Asia and Money FM 89.3, Glenn has helped leaders across the region to find their voice and sharpen their message. And now, as the founder and CEO of Fan Media Group, he now coaches senior executives on how to connect across cultures and generations. And today, he will explore about 21st century communicators in your organization. Boomers to Zoomer, navigating Slack, sarcasm, and side eyes in multi-generational miscommunication. So, Glenn, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Thank you very much for all joining us today. I'm thrilled to be here with such a diverse crowd. We've got baby boomers who remember when phones had a cord in the wall and had a rotary dial. We also have others who are here that may be from the Gen X generation who survived a childhood without helmets or hashtags, millennials who perhaps turned side hustles into full-time jobs, and Gen Z members, the first truly digital native generation who were born knowing how to bypass parental controls and on their social media and their Netflix accounts as well. Well, you may be wondering how organizations are supposed to communicate when half of the room thinks that TikTok is a 15-second dance and the other half thinks that it's a surveillance tool that is trying to scrape our personal data. Well, that's exactly where we are today. Because of our differences, our slang, our tech habits, our caffeine purchases, we all want the same thing in our organizations: to be heard, to be understood, and maybe, just maybe, to not be ghosted by our coworkers. In office communication, there is so much going on. We all know it. We've all seen it. We all live it. It comes down to time, to money, and a productive, satisfying communication environment for all. That is the Holy Grail, and that is often hard to achieve. Over the next 15 minutes or so, I'd like to decode some of the chaos and the costs and talk about how we can come together to build a bridge across the generational miscommunication divide that exists in many organizations today. So buckle up. It's going to be a fast ride with a few bumps and hopefully some scenic views as well along the way. Of course, we always want to make sure that as communicators, all of us are confident, credible, and clear in the way we present information. I come to this, as Halifa said, as a journalist, nearly 30 years working for CNN International, CNBC Asia, ABC News, and many others in print and in broadcast. And during that time, I really understood what it means to be an impactful communicator, and having seen how executives are good at doing that, and conversely, some who need quite a bit of help. Over the past 18 years, my business has grown as a consulting business now. We do all of these things that you see on the screen, everything from media training and impactful communication, all the way down to helping our executives learn how to do keynote speeches and even town hall addresses. It can be daunting for them, no matter how simple or seemingly complex that communication challenge might be. We also work with everyone from MNCs and small, medium businesses to government officials, and also to journalists as well as any kind of organization that has a communication challenge, either internally or externally. Additionally, every week, my passion project on the weekend is the host of the Saturday morning show on Money FM 89.3. Right here in Singapore from 9 to 12. I invite you to listen in when you next have an opportunity to do so. I've been in Asia for 35 years, and as a PR and resident of Singapore for the past 20 years, have had the ability to see not only cross-generational communication at work, but also cross-cultural communication, very important as well. Since we're going to be talking about the generations, let's just do a quick refresh on what that means. Baby boomers, 1946 to 1964, Gen X from 1965 to 1980, Gen Y, millennials from 81 to 96, and Gen Z from 97 on. Of course, we're getting into Gen Alpha now, but for our purposes today, they won't be part of the conversation since they are not a meaningful part of the workforce, not just yet anyway. Generational miscommunication comes from many different reasons, right? First off, we think about differences in values and styles. We think about the experiences, the life experiences that people have had from one generation to the next. We also look at technology and the technology role that has been played in our expectations of how we use the world around us. Clearly, that is very different from one end of the age spectrum to the other. Impact on productivity. Unaddressed miscommunication leads to frustration on all sides. Less collaboration, lower productivity in teams. And finally, bridging the gap. We have to figure out a way in organizations where sometimes we don't even realize what the communication problems are or how we can solve them, but how we can address these differences with respect, with empathy, and how we talk to each other, how we communicate with each other. We think about the real costs involved, and there are very real costs. We talked a little bit about productivity. We know that can be an issue, but let's look at some dollars and cents, because for you as a learning and development professional, someone perhaps in the HR department, we are consciously thinking all the time of how to make our businesses better, more inclusive, more open to everybody, and frankly, more profitable as well. Recent studies done by Gallup and Axios have shown that just in the US alone, over $2 trillion a year is wasted by US companies because of the reflection of bad communication. For small, medium enterprises, those with 100 employees or fewer, it can be $450,000 a year. For large multinationals, it can be $6 million a year. These are massive costs just because people didn't know how to communicate with each other the right way or did it badly in certain instances. Per employee, depending on the job category that that person occupies, that cost could look like $10,000 all the way to $55,000 or more in wasted time, effort, and not getting things right that cost the company money. Real numbers, real challenges that we all face. And as a learning and development professional, these are the kinds of things that you must be facing on a regular basis with your staff. And of course, decreased productivity. Not surprising. We've all been in situations where people didn't communicate well and something was literally or figuratively lost in translation. So we know that there can be missed deadlines. We know that there can be project delays. We also know that 70% of employees are not fully engaged because of miscommunication. And very importantly, some 50% of companies struggle to retain talent because of bad communication. These studies and many more are coming out on an increasing and an alarming rate based on looking at generational differences in communication and what we need to do to address those very problems. Let's give you a quick example. Now, we're going to look at an email and a Slack comparison between boomers and Gen Z and see how one project looked very different to two different segments of the office community. So first off, we look at the baby boomers, and Ava sends an email. She's a designer. Team, I've been working on a new concept for mobile interface. It's visually engaging, could really improve our interaction. I'll share a mock-up shortly. I would love your thoughts. Jay, the product manager, sounds promising in the email that he writes back to her. Let's schedule a quick sync for 2 p.m. today. Please confirm your availability. Then Leo chimes in. He's a developer. He says, thanks, Jay. Just a heads up, I'm currently debugging a few issues in the test environment. Should be resolved before our meeting. Ava then comes back. Appreciate the update. Looking forward to your input. Your backend insights are great, blah, blah, blah. And then Jay, finally, I will send out a calendar invite. Let's aim to finalize the next steps during that call. Hey, pretty standard, right? You might have been in a similar type of email exchange on a different topic. This is what our traditional way of looking at things might look like for generations slightly older in the office. Now let's go to the other side. Let's go and have a look and see what it looks like from a Gen Z communication standpoint and how they might approach this very thing. Ava starts off, hey, I've got a hot new idea. It's creative, smart, could really pop on mobile. Thoughts? Then Jay replies, and I know I needed a translation for this myself. Don't worry. I'm thinking it's great. Want to meet at 2 p.m.? That's good. Is that good for everybody? Leo joins in. I'm coding fast. 2 p.m. works. I'm debugging something now, but I'll fix it before then. Ava, amazing work. You're a wizard. Thanks. And Jay, fueled by coffee and ready to launch. Let's go. So one simple task to do, set up a meeting and talk about something, two very different ways to do it. Now you can imagine if you are trying to blend generations and mix these messages, mix these inputs, how challenging it can be, or it could be frustrating for one side or the other if their communication needs are not met. So what do? We literally have to have a generational decoder ring, right? We need some serious help in trying to figure out who is saying what in the office. We need to understand the origins of communication styles and also workplace behaviors. I'm going to put up a quick chart that I made. It's a bit busy, so I apologize for that. But basically, it talks about boomers and millennials versus Gen Z, their tone, how they use emojis, sentence structure, meeting setups, etc., and feedback. And here is that. The tone, right? Obviously, in number one for millennials is, more structured, more sentence-based. Gen Z on the right side, more casual, more expressive. Look at emoji, right? Obviously, the millennials and boomers are a little more sparing in how they use it. It is a primary mode of expression for Gen Z's. Sentence structure, full sentences versus fragmented shorthand, meeting setup, explicit scheduling versus implied and formal, and feedback. You get the idea, verbal appreciation versus visual praise. Now, I don't know about you. I have teenagers. I can absolutely relate to this when we send WhatsApps back and forth. Something as simple as where do you want to have dinner and what time becomes sometimes an indecipherable thing for me to deal with as an older adult, but for them and between my two teenagers, perfectly makes sense. A fun quote, it's not 100% accurate, but I think it says a lot about the learning and communication styles. Boomers want a memo and meetings. Gen Z wants memes and emoji. Millennials want feedback and meaning. Gen X just wants to be left alone. We see all of that. So, team workshop. Boomers, Zoomers, navigating Slack, slide eyes, multi-communication. How do we do this? Here's what I'd like to show you a little bit about communication mastery in a workshop for your team. Verbal communication, digital communication, written communication. These are the things that they are going to focus on. I'm going to go through these quickly. Of course, we can have a chat about these at any time in the future that you'd like to, if you'd like more information. In the interest of time, the participants are going to learn about understanding generational values and communication style, building empathy, sharing languages, decoding digital tone, right? Slack and Snapchat, WhatsApp, Discord. How are these being used? And of course, regular emails. Understanding verbal content, nonverbal delivery, communicating with clarity and impact, practicing discussions across these age groups during this workshop, and if it's necessary, creating a team communication charter, if that is something that might be useful within your team. The duration, very simply, it's typically a 2-day activation delivered over 2 consecutive months. So one in 1 month and the second month. Of course, it's absolutely scalable. We're targeting team members of all ages within all departments or across the organization, those who seek advancement, those who want to be heard and read and understood. And the full day workshop, for example, could be in month 1. There's homework assigned, followed up by a workshop in month 2. Assessing learning and impact is very important. We know that from the L&D perspective, you need to be able to quantify what is going on. And of course, this is going to be an interactive and fast-paced program for everybody. What do the delivery options look like? on-site workshops, lectures, global delivery, scalable experience. Again, we can look at specific departments, or we can look at the organization as a whole, etc. And scale adaptations, small teams, less than 15, mid-market up to 50, and enterprise solutions, 50 or more. Obviously, with the enterprise solution, it's a little bit more of a lecture with some in-seat exercises versus the small teams, which is a much more focused and mentor-driven, high-touch program for that. Workshop measurement, we have to be able to quantify what's going on. We look at 360-degree in the current situation, peer feedback, management feedback, tracking the workshops, communication skill application, communication journals done by the participants between these workshops, and looking at change indicators. And after that, we look at the end of the second workshop, we really dive in and look at that feedback on how it's going, what changed, what could be better. And tracking long-term would be something that the L&D executive would look at in terms of tracking in-house movements and progression along those lines. The indicative investment for this, starting at Sing dollars 10,500 for the workshops. We do consider the number of days, the number of attendees, any additional requirements that you might have. Of course, we have no cost, no obligation chat in real time online or in person if you're in Singapore about discussing your needs, whatever they may be, to bring your teams back together, to acknowledge the generational differences. I'd like to partner with you to help you transform your learning culture around communication, driving the organization excellence, to make sure that everyone is listening and to each other, taking time to hear each other, and taking time to understand each other. Thank you very much for your time and consideration. I'll take questions at the end of this presentation.
All
Anitha,
right.
back to you.